Okay, welcome to the Hachaim. This week we're going to learn a very fascinating Hachaim. Touches on very interesting Kabbalistic ideas. Nothing too deep. We'll try to explain it to the best of our ability. And it shows also how a pasuk in the Chumash can have a simple meaning and a much deeper meaning, al pi drush, remez, soid, as we know that all the psukim can be darshan al pi pardes. Pardes is pshat, remesh, drush, soid. In English, the word pardes means an orchard. An orchard has many different types of trees. So to lahavdil, the Chumash has many different types of ways to darshan the pasuk. The Torah begins in this week's Parshat, Tazria, talking about the halachas of after an Isha gives birth, she is tameh for a specific amount of time due to the dam leda, depending if she has a boy or a girl. Now is not the scope of the shir to discuss it, but it's interesting topics. The Gemara in Nida discusses it further. So the pasuk begins, Isha ki Tazria, when an Isha is mazriya v'yolda zachar. So the older Mefarshim explain that when the Isha is mazriya tchila, then it's a zachar, it's a boy. If the Baal is mazriya tchila, it's a nekeva. Using that, the Hachaim brings a bunch of different pshatim on the deeper meanings of the pasuk, and the one that we're going to talk about is towards the end of the Hachaim on this pasuk. This pasuk, says the Hachaim, actually refers to the geula, to the upcoming geula that's Mitzvah Shem going to be coming. So in order to understand, we just have to give an hakdama. We know that zachar in simple explanation means man, male, and nekeva means female. In Kabbalistic terms, it usually refers to a mashpia, a giver. A zachar is known as a giver, and a nekeva refers to a receiver. It doesn't necessarily mean that a zachar is always the giver and the nekeva is always the receiver. Generally, that's how it is, but it's not necessarily given. You know, there are many women who are mashpiyim, and there are many men who are receivers. So it's not necessarily, but in general, that is what the term is referring to. And this refers to the relationship of Hakadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, where Hakadosh Baruch Hu is known as the Zachar, and our Hachaim brings a few different psukim that where Hakadosh Baruch Hu is referred to as the husband. Hakadosh Baruch Hu engages us, right? V'yarasticha li la'olam, and Klal Yisrael or Knesset Yisrael, which is the spiritual guf of Klal Yisrael as a whole, is referred to as the nekeva. So when the pasuk says Isha, the Hachaim says the Isha is really referring to Klal Yisrael. Ki Tazria, when she's mazriya tchila, which means when we do mitzvahs tchila on our own hisoiris, on our own willingness, without Hashem telling us we have to do X, Y, and Z, otherwise something's going to happen. We are now mazriya, a zachar in the world. We create a situation where we are now giving kaviyachol. And what are we giving? We are giving to the spiritual lamais a special shefa, which in return creates geula. And the Hachaim explains that when we do something on our own, a great example would be Tosefes Shabbos or extending Shabbos. We know that Shabbos comes automatically at Shkia or around that time. How do we give more? How do we do a maisa, a pu'ula, that we are the ones that are creating Shabbos, so to speak? That's when we bring in Shabbos early. So we are the zachar when we bring in Shabbos early, and that is mashpia, tremendous chef in the world. A lot of tzaddikim have always given as a skula to start preparing Shabbos early, to bring in Shabbos early, because when we do it, we are now the giver to the olamas. The way the world works is that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is mashpia shefa into the world, and we, the world, Klal Yisrael, are the receivers. We receive the shefa from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. That is the reason why Hakadosh Baruch Hu is kaviyachol the action is referred to a zohar dika action, the mashpia, and we are considered the nekeva, the mekabel. We receive from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. However, the Gemara says in Kabbalah, it says hisrasusa delasata. When we do something in this world, it creates a reaction in the upper worlds that boomerangs back to us. And the reason is because we now create the zachar. When the isha is mazriya, it creates the zachar, because that has a tremendous impact on the oilamus. And our Hachaim says, when we do that, we create a tremendous reaction in the world that can bring geula, whether it's geula pratius, whether it's geula klalius. Specifically here, the Hachaim refers to geula klalius, the geula. Now, even though the geula has to come at a certain time, but it's clear that even if it comes at the prescribed time, it's only because of our mitzvahs, right? And it's true that if we would be even on a higher level, it would come earlier, which is another manifestation of us doing something, of us giving kaviyachol to the oilamos. But even if it doesn't, it happens on the specific time, it's only because we initiated mitzvahs. So that's the first part of the pasuk. Isha ki Tazria. Isha is referring to Klal Yisrael. When we're mazriya mitzvahs, when we on our own do mitzvahs more than we have to do, that's another reason why mitzvahs derabanan is a tremendous koyach, because those are mitzvahs that we added on. The rabbanon dika mitzvahs were given to us from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Chanukah, Purim, one of the great scholars is Purim, right? Kippurim is like Purim, which means Purim is the main thing. Yom Kippur is the thing that we compare Purim to. So why is that? Because Purim is the Rabbanon. It was something that we on our own, through the actions of Klal Yisrael and Esther HaMalka, created this new mitzias in the world. You can take it a step further. In the Chumash, we know that there were two mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael gained, kaviyachol, that Hashem didn't tell Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Pesach Sheni, and the mitzvah of the Benois Tzalavchad of Lomani Gora. It's a very similar mitzvah, and they were both inspired by us feeling we have to do more. That's why Tosefes Shabbos is great. Doing mitzvahs derabanan has a tremendous school. The Gemara says, and other mefarshim say, being nizar on mitzvahs derabanan is a school for panasa. Why is it a school for panasa? Because now we are the giver. We are creating a mitzias that we're giving to ourselves. Shefa. Shefa is the things that Hakadosh Baruch Hu sends into this world, that through all the different oilamos become material objects. The Hachaim then continues and says, Bihi Tameh. So how does Klal Yisrael become Tameh? In Isha, as we know, sees Dam Nida, or through the Dam Leda, which is also could be considered Dam Nida, is Tameh. So we have to go through the final period before the actual Geula is 7 years of Golus. That also refers to the 7 years of Shemitah. And the B'Yom Hashmini, which is normally the bris, right? The Yom Hashmini is the day that the boy comes to a bris. That refers to the boy, the mitzvahs that we did, comes to the ultimate bris, the ultimate covenant of us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which, as we said, is like Shabbos, which, as we said, mitzvahs that we do, it shows an extra relationship between us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the ultimate bris is the final Geula. And the final Beis HaMikdash, which is as a result of us doing the mitzvah, will never be destroyed. So when you look at this pasuk and you learn the Hachaim in depth, we can see the beauty of the pasuk. Not only is it talking about a halacha, a simple pshat, it is also a drush, remez, soy. The Hachaim brings different pshatim on this, but this pshat shows us the tremendous koichas that we as Yidden have when we do mitzvahs that on our own. When we add to the mitzvahs, we do a hider mitzvah, we do more than is expected of us, that brings tremendous shefa and tremendous chusim to us, and hopefully it will be mashpia, shefa, bracha, tzlacha for each one of us on our own, and the ultimate shefa, the shefa of what we're all waiting for, the geula shleima.